So I'm here with Khnum, Stic, Ibomu, from the legendary rap group Dead Prez, and author of the book, The 5 Principles: A Revolutionary Path to Health, Inner Wealth, and Knowledge of Self. Congratulations on being nominated for the NAACP Award for Outstanding Literary Work as well.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, man. Good to talk to you.
Most definitely. The first principle in the book you talk about is mindset, and you mentioned early on not having the healthiest mindset. And I really enjoy reading the book because I feel like, being a fan of your music, I kind of picked up pieces of your stories over the years, just listening to your songs. For instance, on Let's Get Free, you talk about getting your diploma from a school called Rickers, which was 30 miles away from where you lived. If you listen to the song and read the book, I guess one of your teachers had challenged you to write something for Black History Month. That led to you writing a verse that got you kicked out of school. What was so controversial about that verse that you had written that caused you to get kicked out of school and sent to Rickers?
Man, one of my lyrics was, "I ain't no Uncle Tom, to hell with Uncle Sam," right? And it was really just, the youth in me, the young rage. But at the institution I was going to, Wakulla High School, it was just racist. There was a racist administration, a racist legacy. And so even just a young Black person just speaking that truth, you know what I mean, was set it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like do you feel like, that anger was what led to you like eventually being incarcerated? Because you talk about in the book, like, being like very volatile. And I was wondering, like, where was that anger coming from?
Oh man, that anger was coming from two ways to answer that question. The anger was coming from my unskillful reaction to the system and all of the trappings that's set up, for us to fail, for us to be incarcerated, to be institutionalized, and all that. That's how the game is set up. And I didn't have the skills of self-awareness and emotional intelligence really to see that trap and maneuver around it. So I had to go through it to learn it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like two ways to answer that. Ultimately, it's about the lack of skill that I had to recognize my own mindset and the creative mindset that was going to put me where I wanted to be instead of where they designed for me to be. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I feel like, you kind of like talk about books being a really big part in your spiritual development. And then also, like, having like supportive people to like lead you on the right path, like, working at the bookstore and like, things of that nature. How important is it, like, as far as mindset, to surround yourself like with the right people and the right like type of things to feed your mind?
Yeah, man. It's, principle one in my book is mindset matters. And, your mind is not just your thoughts and your mental energy, but it's the things that we consume, like your mental diet, your relationships, right? And what you're exposed to, right? And the perspectives that you're exposed to, all of that is part of the mental diet. So, it's priceless to have people that, mentor you, which I had many, many, many mentors, personally, and mentors spiritually. I have mentors in form of Malcolm X. His autobiography mentored me. Bruce Lee mentored me through his work. So, it's about looking for the light in others, you know what I mean? And, to light our path too,
Yeah, and one of the mentors you kind of talk about, what I was surprised about was you talk about reading Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, which I was surprised, not because of like, Scientology being controversial, but because of like listening to the song Propaganda. And like, you say on that you believe man made God out of ignorance and fear. Do you still have like similar sentiments, or would you say your views have evolved in regards to spirituality?
Yeah, definitely my views have evolved. But in that statement and propaganda, I said, I believe man made God out of ignorance and fear. If God made man, then why the hell would he put us here, right? What I mean is the man-made concept,
Right.
the religious indoctrinations, that man uses to control people. But I have grown to have a relationship with spirit, you know what I'm saying? And in a way that probably defies words. And I believe as we live life, everybody will have their realizations that we are more than what's sitting in front of us. You know what I mean? Like, it's all kind of energies that we don't see, from gravity to radio waves to, all kinds of things that are unseen but are very much real, right? And so I feel like what I've learned is that spirit is real. It's just the subtle form of the matter that we call our bodies or whatever, but it's something animating that. In China they call it chi. In India they call it prana. In Hawaii they call it mana. So I think I've learned that spirit is in charge, and so the 5 principles is about charging your spirit. Yeah.
Man, speaking of spirit, somehow, like, being like, from Tallahassee, which is the home of Florida A&M, like, you would always like hang out, I guess, on the campus. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like you took a lot more, from somebody that didn't go to college than people who sometimes do go to school. Like, you got a wife, you started a legendary hip hop group, it's a lot of discourse around HBCUs because Deion Sanders recently left JSU. Do you feel that's a common misconception that HBCUs are broke?
Maybe I'm out the loop, or my circle is a little different, but I've always felt like there was a big value in our community for HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? Like, they like in my town in Tallahassee, if it wasn't for FAMU, like in the people there, in the Black intentions, that it represented. It wasn't perfect, of course, but nothing is. But if it was them, like, we wouldn't have had the resources to grow and develop in a Black conscious kind of way. Like, that was the source of it, because people bringing in energy from all these different places. So I think in Black communities, the HBCUs are more than just a place to, get in debt for a degree. You know what I mean? But I think there is cultural and enrichment, if we allow it to be. Yeah.
That reminds me, like, Let's Get Free, They Schools, like, that's one of my favorite songs. I feel like, what would you like to see, like, taught in schools that aren't usually?
The 5 principles. Yeah, seriously though, like, mindset, like, the way we get taught about mindset in school is like, do what you told, you know what I mean? Follow, like sheep herding, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we expect in general from everybody, and anybody, any blue crayon in the green box is in trouble. You know what I'm saying? You delinquent, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like school doesn't teach enough psychology. You know what I'm saying? I feel like school don't teach enough self-management. School don't teach enough nutrition. They don't, even the PE and fitness, like, is not a requirement in a lot of places no more. You know what I mean? So we just learning how to sit in the box, you know what I mean, and get ready to sit in a job somewhere. You know what I mean? If you get that job, because automation and everything is taking a lot of that. School teach enough self-care. Don't teach you how to meditate. Don't teach you why relaxing and how to relax and how to recharge your energy. You know what I mean? It don't teach you inspiration. It don't teach you goal setting and planning and none of that. It just teach you academic intellectual stuff that probably 90% of it we don't learn how to apply it in the real world. So I feel like schools, you know, if I was president for a day, right? You know, after I put on my vest and dodge some bullets, I would have school be transformed to a holistic education would be the foundation of what we learning, like the whole, the how education is about connecting us to a holistic way of living, you know, that we could take care of ourselves from the inside out. Yeah.
Right. And you've had some like, you know, real life examples of like, you know, applying that to your life. I think like one of the stories you tell in the book is about how you woke up with a swollen ankle and you went to the doctor and you found out that you had gout. And like they were just basically trying to prescribe you some medicine, which you would have probably been on for the rest of your life. But because,
Right.
you know, your wife, like, you know, she knew about like holistic healing, you know, recommending you changing your diet and exercising. And that pretty much got rid of your gout.
Yep, for sure, man. That was that journey. Um, Waking up with gout. That's how I got introduced to plant-based living, the plant-based lifestyle, and I didn't realize that just those simple choices of I mean, I knew drinking, smoking, or whatever wasn't going to make you the healthiest person on the planet, but I didn't realize how hard I was going at that early, and also all the choices combined. You know, the stress, the food, the
Right.
drinking, smoking, you know, this kind of stuff, the unhealed trauma contributed to, you know, a poor state of health, man. So like going plant-based, surprisingly, which I was just trying to, you know, heal my leg, but by healing that physical symptom, a whole lot of like emotional things got released. A whole lot of spiritual cleansing happened in that detox. And so next thing I know, not only do I got my leg back, but I got my energy back, and I got my optimism. You know that I hadn't had. You know, coming up, a lot of when you see family members on drugs. You know, when you know you right at the poverty line. You know, optimism is not always easy to come by. So I didn't expect it, but it happened by changing my diet. My outlook was allowed to change too, and that made every bit of difference.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love the fact too in the book you talk about how you started running and like, you know, I run too. Like I think like, you know, the way you described it, like how you broke it down into like incremental steps. And one of the things I was really surprised about is the fact that you were running before you performed like on stage, like doing shows on tour. Like I thought that was crazy. Like you do like an 18-mile run in Chile, I think like was the story, and then you
Yeah,
go perform. what
yeah,
what
man.
what made you
Yeah.
do that?
Running became such like a more than fitness. Like running became like a mental, spiritual, and physical uh, calling or practice. So like for like running would help me just get in this like attune myself, right, to want to get on stage and just have more of my chi present. Like I'm like I gotta run when I get to the city. Like I'm more than sound check. That run was my way of like getting prepared. You know what I'm saying? And just a way to tap in. I get a lot of messages, a lot of insights, a lot of creative ideas. Just you know going on my runs. So yeah, it brought energy. It may seem like counterintuitive, like you know, running would have made you tired, but it actually brought energy to the performances and to everything else I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you have this section like near the end of the book and you talk, I think you call it like the Wellionaires of hip hop. And you're like pointing out like, you know, all the different like hip hop artists that are doing things like that are focused on health, you know, promoting healthy living. Do you think like, you know, it's going to be like as far as like a mindset change? Like I feel like in the early 90s, like a lot of hip hop, you know, was about like, you know, smoking blunts and you know, alcohol, like that was promoted, but you feel like, you know, now that it'll be more of like a promotion of a healthy lifestyle?
You know, I definitely hope so. You know, that is what my calling is to use hip hop to inspire wellness and to let wellness inspire hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So, I think in that section in the book, what I call the age of the Wellionaire is um, my vision and my observation of all the ways people involved in the hip hop culture are also stepping into, you know, plant-based living or martial arts or yoga or meditation or other forms of healing. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's just not promoted as much as it's happening. And we promoting, you know, the lean and the popping this and the Zanny this and all that, as opposed to promoting all these great things we doing in the wellness space as a hip hop community. So that's definitely part of my calling on my path is to always, you know, point the camera in that direction. So people that's coming up who are going to continue the culture be able to see examples, you know, that are worth being inspired by.
Yeah, man, I was definitely inspired reading the book, and it was like so much I didn't know like about like your journey. And I think one of the coolest things was like we were talking about like how Erica Badu, like when she was dating Common, used to go on double dates like with your wife and Common, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, man, that was a blessing, man. Badu definitely was and is a fellow holistic kind of practitioner. You know what I'm saying? She became from the home birth of my first son. That was her first home birth, and then she went on to become a doula and help many women deliver. So that was a special time. Her camaraderie, her chlorophyll, water, and all the kind of little stuff she would bring into our experience, man. I'm very grateful. Yeah.
Man, and so you created a new genre of like music, I would say. Would you say it's a new genre or
So fit hop. You referring to fit hop? Fit hop is, yes, it is like a subgenre in the sense that, of course, it's hip hop, but it's hip hop focused on healthy and holistic living. So it's music that I started to make specifically for like to run to or to, on the way to the gym or at the gym in your headphones or, at the beginning or in the yoga class, music to inspire a healthy lifestyle. So it's something that came to me when I put out the album, The Workout, and then the follow up years later, Workout 2. These concept albums to me is more than just projects in themselves, but it's the idea that just like we could talk about lean, we could talk about being green. You know what I'm saying? It's the same. It's the same difference, except the mantras and the choruses and the lyrics that we listen to, loving hip hop, sweating and all that. It'll be something that might be like, oh, this is worth being in my subconscious, because all music goes in the subconscious. Everything we consume goes in the subconscious, and those are seeds, and they grow, and we keep feeding it. So for me, fit hop is a way to play hip hop music when we train and when we to support a lifestyle and plant those kind of seeds that can grow into culture and a wellness culture for our families and our futures. Yeah.
yeah, it's dope. And I was reading about how like you don't have any profanity in it because like you were like challenged by like like an ex-marine like to write clean music for.
Yeah. Baba Jim, rest in peace. Yeah, he was a ex-military, but he was an African leader in the community. My son went to his all African boys school, and he was just somebody that was an OG to us in the community, and he was a big fan. He's not a fan of a lot of things, and hip hop one of them, but he was a fan of Dad Prez because of the message. but he would always say to me, like, more people could hear y'all and more of the kids could hear y'all if y'all didn't have certain kind of language. Cause you know, Dead Prez is raw. So, and at first I used to be like, you know, Baba Jim don't know what it is. But out of respect for him, when I asked him to be on a song on the workout called Joe Louis. And this was when I was making the first Fit Hop album. And he agreed to get on it. And I told him, I was like, it won't be no profanity on it, you know what I mean? So out of respect to you. And when I said that to him, I was like, you know what? And I'm gonna keep it like that for the whole album because you on the album. So I'm gonna respect that. And then he ended up passing. You know what I mean? He transitioned. And so just in honor of him, I was like, you know what? When I do Fit Hop, I'm gonna keep Baba Jim's recommendation. No profanity, no N-word, none of that. It's still gonna be hard. It's still gonna be you know, the streets could feel it, but it's also gonna be respectful of families. So, you know, you could play it at church if you want to. You know what I'm saying?
That's dope, man. You're doing so much like incredible things, like, you know, in music, like, you know, the book. And this is actually your second book, correct?
Yeah, I did a couple like independent publishers. You know, this is my first major publisher with Balance P. But yeah, I've had a few. I did The Art of MCing, about writing songs as a hip hop artist. I did Warrior Names from Africa, a collection of names that I searched for when I was looking for my son's names. And I did a book called Eat Plants, Lift Iron with my nutritionist, who was my wife at the time, and my strength trainer, Scott Shetler. So, and that was a plant-based experiment to see if I could gain 20 pounds as a vegan runner, ectomorph, body frame, and all that. So I've messed around with writing and putting out books, but this the 5 Principles is my first with a major publisher and my first nominee for a major award. So it's awesome.
Man, congratulations. There's supposed to be a new Dead Prez album coming out middle of this year.
Well, we definitely been in the trenches working, channeling, you know, seeing what's good, you know, what's the best of the best, you know what I mean? So we working, man. And I don't want to put no exact date on it, but we definitely enjoying the process, and we got the team back together in a good way. Everybody's feeling inspired. Yeah.
Do you feel like, you know, that it's I feel like, you know, that the Obama presidency, you know, kind of like, you know, made it where it wasn't really a need for, like, you know, the type of music that you guys, like, you know, do best. But then, like, you know, when Trump became president, it's like it's clearly a need for it. Do you feel like, you know, you kind of look at it the same way, or?
You know, I think there's a bunch of different perception of who and what Dead Prez is. You know what I'm saying? You know, I think the need for what we do is, you know, we're just contributing to the conversation, you know, as it relates to what we feel like is the okie doke, you know what I mean? What we feel like is, you know, is against us and what we're against. And also, as I learned with Fit Hop, you know, to focus on what we for, not just what we against so much. You know what I'm saying? So I think the part of the hiatus with Dead Prez was just like we gave what 10 albums, you know, mixtapes, major releases, independent, you know what I mean, banging on the system, banging for change. You know what I'm saying? And we done seen a few different, we done seen the Bushes, the Clintons, you know what I mean, the Obamas, you know, the Trumps. Look at our conditions, you know what I'm saying, through all, whether or whoever it was, you know, the police brutality didn't stop. You know what I mean? The reparation check wasn't cut. You know, we could go on and on with the just the system, the disparity on how all this stuff affects families, you know what I mean, breaks up homes. Like, you know, all of this stuff is still cracking. So it's always going to be a relevant time for people to, you know, make music that's talking about the real issues that we dealing with and the real things that we're grateful for and the things that empower us as well.
Man, speaking of police brutality, like, have you watched the Tyree Nichols video? Like, you see like the Memphis police, they give him like 71 commands in 13 minutes, you know.
Yeah, I ain't watch it, man. Like, yeah, I didn't watch it, but I'm aware. You know what I'm saying? I'm aware, and this has been. What words can you say at this point? Like, what words? You know what I mean? That's gonna do that justice. It's like our community constantly is being brutalized, by the powers that be on the street in ways that it is criminal. So, this since I was a teenager, we Rodney King, you know what I mean, and it ain't stopped. Amadou Diallo, we could go on and on and on and on and on, all the different ones. And now this generation, you know what I mean? I got a son that's 21, right. You know what I'm saying? I got a son that's 7, that this is their reality now, in a sense. So, of
What do
course,
you feel would be a solution as far as police reform?
well, it's levels. I feel like, the police existing in itself, just the police force, right, is an oppressive reality. You know what I'm saying? Now, the alternative to that, people got to be ready to be responsible as individual community members to have a real solution, a lasting solution, a revolutionary solution to this force that's called the police. But I think, so in between that, I think, the police have to come under the jurisdiction of the community, right? And they have to be subject to treating us with absolute respect, you know what I mean? Or the people's justice, is what they, is gonna hold them in check. You know what I mean? And I think, that happens in ways that, like, the Black Panther Party put it down, and I think it can happen in new ways that people can be inspired to come up with, man. But something, all I know is something got to give. And, I know we sick of seeing these videos, and we sick of seeing people getting brutalized right in front of our eyes, and there's no justice. So I feel like people are justified in whatever they do to protect themselves.
Most definitely, being from Florida, that's a state, that it has a Republican governor named Ron DeSantis. I know you don't live in Florida now, but like recently he blocked like an AP course in history from being taught, like, Black history specifically. And I think, like, like part of the reason, like he was saying, like, it was politically motivated because, like, includes, like, subjects like it's teaching like queer theory and things of that nature. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Like, that's kind of what happened to me in Florida in school, and me speaking on a perspective of history, Black history, that is not what the status quo wants to get behind and wants to see happen. So I think this is an example, and that was what, 35 years ago. And now, Florida is saying, we can't teach African history, so it ain't, you see how important it is to do this work, to expose ourselves and people to the conditions. Because somewhere else, in Cali somewhere, they might be having a great African history, class, and they nobody getting this, you know what I mean? But that ain't the case. So I think critical race theory is a term, in my opinion, that the oppressor created that box, right? And so they can control the narrative if we start arguing about critical race theory, right? But the reality is, how about we teaching justice in through the lens of history? You know what I'm saying? Like, America's supposed to be freedom, justice, and equality for all. So let's reference that as we look at history and see what's the truth about that. Black Panther Party said, we want one of the 10-point points on the 10-point platform was, we want a real education that teaches us the true nature of the decadent American racist society. Like, that is a right for us to get the truth. So, that's how I feel about day schools.
How do you get though to a point though where, because it seems like we live in a very polarized time politically where half the people won't even acknowledge like what you just said, about like America's racist history, and like or it's so far gone in the past that it doesn't matter, like when it comes to like topics about slavery or reparations, and then you have like the other half, like who are like like, look, we need to address these issues and stuff, like what the Black Panthers were trying to do, there's still people out here who are trying to like kind of like push the conversation forward, and even like come from not even an ideological place of extremism, but like
right.
like topics that have never been really addressed.
Yeah, man, I think that's important, and I don't think, as much as I'm inspired by and I appreciate the legacy of the Panthers and groups like that, I don't think that's necessarily the way we have to move going forward. I think we can be inspired by it, but each generation has to figure out their contribution and the way that that's going to be most impactful. I know for us, though, we took our inspiration from the Panthers, but we was like, hip hop is the phenomenon that's really moving crowds and moving people. You know what I mean? So we put it in the form of hip hop, and so, but nowadays, it's not a lot of hip hop that is allowing itself to be a platform for these kind of things. You know what I mean? So we're gonna find different ways. I think I encourage people in the arts, in education, in the different sectors to figure out how to make your contribution. You know what I mean? In that, like, whatever, if you're a barbershop, you know what I'm saying? How can the barbershop lend itself to the raising the awareness and the consciousness of the community? Whatever you do in the community, how can you be a part of the people's army in educating and liberating each other? That's the question.
Do you feel like a hip hop group like Dead Prez, like if they came out today, that they could have the impact that they've had?
That it's bigger than hip hop, man. So if that's what we're gonna do, we do our work. We're gonna show up in service, and I do think it's gonna serve its purpose. So I believe that there's a higher cause. I believe that it's divine timing. I believe that the right intention with the right skill for the right reason is unstoppable. You know what I'm saying? So I think just like, against all odds, we've been able to make a global touchdown with the music we've done in our teens, in our ignorance, in our rage and folly. We've still been able to touch the globe. So I feel as grown men who are still humble and still learning, I think what we have to say for this next release is going to further that conversation in a way that's real deal Holyfield. Yeah.
Man, Stic, man, I really appreciate you taking the time and enjoyed speaking with you. I really enjoyed the book, man. The 5 principles, like, you're credible.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you taking the time to check it out, man, and having me chopping it up. Yeah.
Most definitely. What's next for you personally in your journey?
Personally, man, this has been last year has been a big year of transitions. You know what I mean? So I'm healing, I'm growing, uh, I'm working on new music, of course. I'm outlining a new book I got in mind. You know what I'm saying? I'm working with some cool partners in the wellness space. Shout out to my partners, Diodora, who I just released a sneaker with. Um, I am collaborating with this amazing Black-owned fitness campus in Atlanta called the Union, and we're working on some podcast things and some events and things like that right on the Beltline in Atlanta. So, you know, if anybody listening, if you're in Atlanta, look up the Union and you know, definitely check it out when you come to the city. But yeah, I'm just in it. I'm gonna keep the fit hop rolling, and you know, the new Dad Prez. You know, hopefully if it can pass my standards, I got some pretty high standards for the project. But yeah, we're gonna keep the music coming, gonna keep the movement moving. So, and I'm on the gram too. If anybody want to touch down with me, I ain't hard to find. I respond. It's easy. You know, I'm at STIC on Instagram. So let's chop it up.
Definitely, man. Stick, man. I appreciate you for taking the time, and I enjoyed speaking with you. I learned a lot from reading the book, man, and I look forward to, like, you know, supporting your next projects.
All right, Ryan. I appreciate you, man.
Definitely,
Salute.
definitely.